like, you gotta be kidding. He's not dead, he's alive. He's risen. And you think, whoa, that's a big story. Their eyes as wide as saucers. The story continues. The women race back to the disciples and say, guess what? Jesus is alive, he's risen, and there's no more death. What a grand tale. The disciples don't believe. They trudge out to the tomb themselves. They begin to run as they reach the edge. They look inside, and it says John looked inside the tomb and he just pondered. How could this be? There's nobody in the tomb. Then Jesus appears to the disciples, and so Matthew's gospel continues. The women are hurrying away from the tomb. They run to tell the disciples. Verse 9, suddenly Jesus greets them, and he says, as they clasp his feet and worship, Jesus says to them, don't be afraid. Tell the disciples, I'm going to meet them. I'll be with them. You know, the story that begins with these women that don't belong, Ruth, Rahab, finishes with the story of women that in their culture didn't belong. And even the disciples didn't believe the first tale because it was just too miraculous. It was too amazing. How could it be possibly true that Jesus Christ is alive? Who cares about the story of Jesus? Who gives a stuff about Jesus? I do. Why? I just think it's wonderful how the story begins with people who don't belong can find a safe haven or a safe home with God. Because God includes everybody from everywhere. No matter what your background, you can belong with God. Whether you have a Ruth or a Moabitish background, if you're a tax collector and you feel you don't belong, and whatever you find yourself in today, God can help you in your daily life. You see, He specializes in saving from daily sin. He can really make life better. But then, even better than that, He can give you life beyond death, and surely that's the most wonderful and important thing of all. Who cares about the story of Jesus? I care, because I want to live again. I don't want this world to finish and me to be the end of it. I want to see what the next life is really all about. And the story of Jesus, yes, it goes through with His Gethsemane experience. It continues with His crucifixion. But how does it end? Again, people that don't belong, who aren't believed, the women, they come to the tomb, they rush in and they see Jesus has risen. An angel tells them, go and tell the disciples. Jesus interrupts their dash back to the disciples and says, tell my disciples I'm risen and I'll see them. Matthew's gospel finishes famously with the disciples being told, go into all the world and tell them this story. Tell them I'm risen. Tell them that I have power. Tell them I'm in heaven. Who cares about the story of Jesus? I do. And why? Because wherever you go, whatever you do, I do want you to know God loves you.